not trying to stereotype, but being ladies, being female, do you think that puts you ahead versus the male counterpart designers?
I feel that it's around the same actually.
It's very hard to answer.
I mean, this one not selling sunset lah.
I have something that is kind of like different from people because I don't like to create things that is too smart.
They have to give me their input, their day-to-day lifestyle and what will happen in that bedroom lah. Yeah.
Clients also feel more comfortable, like opening up to females.
You're the consumer, you got right to choose. But I'm an ID, I will just give you the advice. What is practical, what is not practical. It's up to you to choose.
We are a little bit more detail-oriented, I might say.
你说我说谁说的算
Renovation isn't just about tiles and mood boards. It's about people and the personalities, as well as the stories that help make the decisions. I'm Astley Ng, aka The Designer. Join me for the Season 2 of the SIXiDER Show.
The common thread that you guys have talked about is this level of empathy for the projects, which is essentially putting yourself in the shoes of the occupants.
Yep.
Now, do you think that you have an advantage on that? I'm not trying to stereotype, but being ladies, being female, do you think that puts you ahead versus the male counterpart designers? Maybe let's start with Kai.
Yes, because as a mother as well, as a daughter, we tend to be more aware of our environment, storage issue, little detail like sharp edges, you know, how the grandparents might walk around the house. So I think it helps because we are a little bit more detail oriented, I might say. Clients also feel more comfortable, like opening up to females.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially home projects.
Yeah, I mean, okay, for guys, I think they like to test us. So, I mean, it's okay, so long as we know our thing, right? I mean, we don't mind to be tested, but I think it can create quite a good rapport at the start, because they feel comfortable with you, they tend to open up more. So I also can get to know my clients more, and I can, it's a very nice journey for me if it's good style.
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten experiences before, like what Priscilla mentioned as well, is that when I have a meeting and then some male clients or even female clients, they will like start to have doubts on us, and then they will start asking us on not even technical knowledge, it's very in-depth technical knowledge to test us. So that's where on our part, of course, everybody as an ID, we need to learn so much more, and this learning is never ending one. It's like just now when I was asking Kai, it's like 16 years, never ending.
Yeah.
You are still learning no matter what. Yeah. So that's what I feel lah.
Do you think that capabilities is actually, or rather technical capability is a male thing? Like for example, some people say that female going to a job site are maybe a bit disadvantaged, right? For example, because, it's a little bit more dirty, and then the guys, usually guys are the one at the job site lah. And then they may, you wear a bit nicer, then you feel that it's not appropriate, then at the same time they may not take you seriously.
I mean, I love it. I love going to jobs. I mean, this one not selling sunset lah, but everybody wear very nice, wear high heels, But I mean, I really love it. I love going site. But advantage wise, definitely we have a slight advantage when it comes to us. Because like sometimes we need to carry heavy stuff and all, and our contractors when they see us like so 可怜 that kind. But actually, at the end of the day, we will tell them, 我可以的, I can do it, but they will just want to help us.
Sure.
So of course they are very helpful. But in terms of going site, I love going site. I love like my shoes are dirty with all the dust and everything. I have left side with my whole body full of plaster, all those. I love it lah, just love it, yeah.
Okay. Then what about you, Kai? Are you like, if you're on a job site, right, are you the calm queen? Are you the strict boss? Or you're like, okay, I see I don't say you now, I go back and report. Are you like that kind of what?
I'll tell them direct, but I'll be very firm. Yeah, and I mean my business, because if they know me lah, I go there, I'll just, because nowadays the workers these days they are also very helpful. They don't really like give you an attitude, so we work nicely to each other. I also go to site dressing like that with my heels as well.
Wow.
I don't care how you look. At the end of the day, I just clean, but I don't mind sweating, getting dirty. It's part of the job. You have to like this part.
Are there any like shocking moments that you all have encountered? It could be anything. It could be from a customer. It could be maybe even after you propose and you've done your costing, then suddenly something happened and all your prices went out and then you are losing money. Have you all had that kind of situations before? Definitely.
Especially during COVID, where everybody just want their house done, and then everybody just don't allow them to renovate, and then so many complaints every day, so many calls every day, so many delays every day. It was a moment that for my past 16 years, it was something that we have never experienced before in the industry, never. So we have learned how to grow with it, make changes, and somehow over this period, the renovation timeline tends to drag a little longer than before, right? It just doesn't went back to that 2 months.
Not even clients. I have neighbors when I was doing the hacking phase. I have neighbors that called me and start complaining. And I was hacking a 5-room flat at Tiong Bahru, and then they called me and then say like, can you reduce that 3 days hacking to 2 hours? I was like, that is highly impossible. That is not even cannot even think of any solution. Yeah, so then that's where like there's a lot of negotiation and need to like come to the common ground. Like 2 hours is really impossible. From a 3 days to a 2 hours is totally impossible one. He did reach to a point to like asking question is like, are you a good contractor or bad contractor? So he reached to a point of asking that question. I was like, I don't think that's for you to judge, because first of all, I'm not even working on your house, so I'm working on my client's house. But of course, I will convey all these messages to my client, so at least I need to let you know that you have this type of neighbors around you.
Yeah, many times we do projects, it's not just doing for your clients, you're doing because they are the occupants.
Correct.
So on that aspect, right, do you think that because you said just now that there are advantages when it comes to the sales part, when it comes to the actual execution of the job site, and pertaining to even the environment, these are not your clients, these are your the neighbors, right? And do you think you face judgments like this?
I mean, whatever they are doing right now, as long as like you follow the regulations and what we can try to explain to them. If they don't want to listen, then we really have to speak to someone, email someone higher ranking that can do something about it. Yeah. Just I mean, you can even make friends. I mean, in this kind of situation, we still can try to like make friends with neighbors and also, build rapport with them. Probably can be our next client.
Yeah, correct.
Let's talk about like going into a real project basis, right? We got the 2 C's, clients, contractors, all right? Which one you all prefer to deal with? Let's start with you.
Both of them are very different. Clients, we usually communicate very formally, and you need to have a certain professionalism with them as well. For contractors, if you are so close to them and you have such a good relationship with them, they become your friend. But there's a certain line. There must be a line that is drawn that when it's come to serious work, it's serious work.
Contractors wise, we built over the years, so pretty much like friends already. So we won't have any issue. For our client, they are different background, different education, different expectation. So a bit more challenging. But the reason why I like this job is because I like to speak to them.
Yeah, I also agree. Like, both are very different. Our clients are the one who invest their emotions. Then our contractors are the one who are logistical, the executors. So they need to wait for us to give them information, what to do. So I mean, one you have to deal with pricing, the other one to deal with emotions. So both are challenging, but I think it's also a good space for us to learn how to communicate with different kind of people involved in our work.
It's interesting that you categorize. You term them as emotions. Why? Can you elaborate a little bit more about this?
Elaborate on emotions.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm also very emotional. But okay, they tend to bring emotions on the table. I mean, be it like gonna be site visit or
wait,
go for
contractors
shopping.
don't?
No.
Contractors not really. I deal with them only at sites. Yeah. So that's a different ball game. Yeah. So So when they come with different emotions, you need to read their face. You need to know how to react. Yeah. So that's why females, we have good emotional intelligence. We can deal with this kind of not say drama just need to read faces So in my first year, right, I really meet people who are a bit difficult.
Yeah.
So my boss also just show me. That I just have to try to deal with it. Because I believe that this is not if I can deal with this, next time will be sooner. So every tough decision or be problem solving, right, will make you a tougher person in the long run. Yeah, so now 5th year, I think much better, easier to manage already. So far.
And our 前辈.
Sometimes you have to break the ice after the quarrel.
Sometimes you'll be a therapist also.
Right. Sometimes it's parent and son argument. So we are actually a counselor as well.
Yeah.
We are here to draw a balance between husband and wife. Who gets which room, who gets what room. We sometimes have to help them identify and the style.
Yeah, so handling couple arguments and fight right before or during the appointment, very, very difficult. I had a lot of time, I just need to walk out from the conference. This is your 家事 not me. I need to just walk out. Yeah, so this is what we usually have to do. So emotion, yes, there definitely a lot to handle from with the clients lah.
What kind of advice would you give to aspiring interior designer students who are entering the industry?
I think most important, you have to come in with an open mind. I think learning very important. The starting is because even if you're interior design student or even you're not a student or what, maybe whatever that you study in school and what is implemented in the real life situation is might be a little bit different. People keep scrolling your social media, learn from what other ID firms are doing, then slowly study all the design trends and everything. I think that's very important. It's good for them also.
It's definitely a place where they can be creative because unlike consultancy firm, they deal with the owner, they can be really creative. However, you do not expect any work-life balance at the first 2 years, okay?
Don't be scared that you don't know anything. I mean, you don't have to start learning or knowing everything. Just be willing to learn, because there's so much things to learn in this industry. Because sometimes I feel like they are just afraid to just do a baby step up. But I feel like they should learn to build more confidence in themselves. Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, no questions are stupid questions. Just ask. But the thing is that if you ask and someone explains to you already, you have to digest and listen.
In residential projects, would you think that it is ideal to be given, there are some projects right now they call the white flats, where there are no walls. And then there are projects that actually comes with the typical standard rooms and all that. What would you prefer? A white layout where there's nothing, and then you get to define your walls and spaces, or you have the walls already built, and then you work with what you have?
Me personally, as a designer, right, I prefer to have it like empty layout, so we can actually start from scratch to plan and design. But actually, there are some homeowners that I've actually met. They would relatively prefer to with walls because they kind of like don't want it to be complicated.
Why do you think that the homeowners who are still kind of like stuck that needs the walls to begin with?
I think one thing is they do not have the knowledge of like what space is what, whereas they need the so-called architect's idea to just be inside.
Meaning that they cannot see the potential of the space.
Correct.
I do agree that some homeowners feel that a certain boundary, having certain walls that are quite standardized for like BTO flats, it gives them a sense of security, like, like my colleague have done this this way. I want to do it this way. So it's like having like a safe guideline for them to like follow it through. But I don't think actually having walls versus having like a open space building on its own, really huge pros and cons to it. I feel that it's around the same actually, because both are quite feasible in a sense in building whatever you want. For example, you want to build like a Victorian concept. It doesn't mean that having an additional wall is stand in the way for it, right? So I think walls or no wall is all based, most importantly, on the homeowner lifestyle. Walls can also add as a saving tool for them to save some cost in terms of not building additional partition wall for it. So I think overall, both ways can be a fun way to still play with design.
Generally speaking, let's say you talk about the HDB 4-room flat and 5-room flat, there's a distance about 3 to 3.5 meter. And that's quite standardized, right? Because of columns and structural stuff. And assuming that now that they come out with a blank kind of layout without the walls, right, then quite clearly you can design a cinema. You can suddenly now say, I want to have like a 150-inch projection because you got space, then you can redesign, because nobody is telling you that there is that wall to begin with, right? You can have free play. Would you all appreciate that?
Yes, definitely. We would definitely love free play, right? It's like having a blank canvas and we can like do almost everything without having the, like I said, additional cost on like hacking down the wall, and then the homeowners will feel like, wow, damn hard pain, they have to hack this wall already.
Yeah,
but
it was already there.
Yeah, it was already there, and they didn't really want it. But because of like the structural importance of the building, they have to have it, right?
On somewhat similar, same veins of thought, right? Like, do we want to look at built-in versus loose, right? So again, you hacked out the walls or it's a blank kind of canvas, right? Would you think that there is benefit in built-ins in this case, or loose furniture will also do?
Homeowners who actually prefer to have more, as in they have some expectation in terms of design, I think built-in still plays a big part. When you have loose furnitures, I mean, you can still make the space look nice and comfortable, but it's still short of a certain luxury and then maybe more towards your lifestyle. It could be quite different. Like, because when we do built-ins, we really cater to what you actually need and not your want.
I want to explore this a little bit more from a structural point of view. If assuming that we do have a project that's
really like open plan, and you then have to build a built-in, right? And the built-in, of course, if it's sufficient enough, it can act as a spatial segregation between, let's say, a space, right? What can you build? What would you suggest could be a good build between two spaces, assuming there's no walls? What would be a good build?
For my style, right, I would like to create something that is multifunctional. So it doesn't like just serve as a, let's say, a divider, but it could be a storage cabinet and it still serve as a divider. Like, rather than just a single function kind of thing. When it comes to me, when I design, right, I have something that is kind of like different from people, because I don't like to create things that is too smart. In the way, like I usually propose my clients to not take for, like, don't go for Murphy beds and stuff like that, because I feel Singaporeans are tend to be more lazy. So I have clients actually, in my past experience lah, they actually do it, but actually maybe 2 to 3 years later they feel that they don't actually use the thing quite often. So
As in that they don't transform it.
Correct.
So
So
the
it
Murphy
becomes-
bed just stays as one form as opposed to the multiple form that it's supposed to be.
correct.
Why do you think it's like that?
I think it's just a very Singaporean thing, because we are so used to, we are that lazy, right? We want everything to be smart, right? So I think maybe first time usage is still possible, but after some years down the road, I think usually Singaporeans will just like, leave it there and then not touch it anymore.
But what happens if, like, at one period of time, right, Singapore they were selling a lot of shoebox apartment. There's really not even like it's not even a matter of choice. If you don't flip that up, there's no way you can put a bed in that space. So what do you think about that?
Actually, we still do that. So we really work on the client, but we will give our advice. Then, of course, so far, my way of approaching to my clients, right, they do have a second thought lah. Of course, sometimes they do move forward with that, but sometimes they don't. So it really still comes down to their preference.
I guess smart moves it can be interpreted in many ways, right? And especially from practitioners like you guys, right? And you're meeting homeowners that most of the time don't interact with home renovation. The very important role that you guys play is that you have to educate lah, right? So that's obviously a smart move lah, to kind of show your capability, show your your exposure to the industry, and say, okay, look, you may, like in the case like Murphy bed, like you really think that at the end of the day, maybe after first year, 2 year, nobody want to use it, then don't waste that money. Spend it on something that's a little bit more intentional. So and then dive deeper and trying to find out what's that intention.
I guess also to add on a little bit, because for Murphy bed, right, I have clients who actually thought maybe they are imagining it as a very high tech thing.
Yeah.
So when it comes down to that actual Murphy bed, right, how come the soft closing not so soft, that kind of thing. So I think it's we have to manage the expectation as well.
What are the tips and tricks or smart moves you all think you can share with our audience?
Usually I will have like a walkthrough with them. So I will ask them to imagine like themselves walking through the door. What is the first thing you would put down?
The flow.
Yeah, the flow. Yeah, what is the first thing you would put down? What's the second thing? Then after that, will you want to have a cup of water? What's the next step? Then from there on, I start to understand more on their lifestyle. What's their usual routine? Because everyone have their at least very basic routine, right? Like put down the key, drink water, go toilet, put down the bag. Usually these are the few routine when they come home, right? So imagine one of these routine get blocked because of their design approach, or because this Pinterest picture look damn good and then they just want to follow it and it blocks the flow of it. Then won't that be more of controlling their life rather than actually uplifting and supporting their life? So the design is not actually supporting it. Right?
Well, I think you inspired me to share another story. We SIXiDES did a video about a blind homeowner, and that particular blind homeowner was a customer that inspired me to write that story. But that one homeowner actually shared with me when he came into the house, he wanted the flooring to have different textures, and mainly it's because when he steps into the house, he empties his pockets. If something drop, right, he cannot tell where it lands at. So the reason why he has different flooring is so that when the thing lands, right, he can make out where that thing landed. Before you think about all your smart moves that you can make for your home, right, it's that you have to be a smart designer. You'll be a designer that's very willing to listen and to understand what the homeowner is looking for. For Xannica, when it comes to planning for a renovation, besides budgeting,
what do you think is the first smart move that the homeowners should make?
I feel that before a homeowner start to think about how I want the aesthetic to look like for the home or how much storage do I want, I think the most important question they should ask themselves is what or how do I usually live daily? What's my daily routine? How do I work? What do I need when I work? How do I cook? What do I need for entertainment?
What's one renovation decision that can seem like it's a very minor thing, but have very, very big long-term consequences or impact to the occupants?
Okay, I do have a few clients who, before they even purchase the house, right, they actually consult me first.
Okay.
So I think that is quite important because they can actually gauge like which house to purchase and how much they're going to, the budget-wise, they can actually manage it better. Yeah, so I mean, I also have on the other side is I have met clients who
After purchase.
doesn't know that after they purchase this house, this maisonette or EA, right, they have to spend this N amount of money. Yeah, because they do have some idea in mind already. And they see this layout, they want to do this and that. But for us is we will probably advise before you purchase the house, you can't do this due to maybe the wall structure, and there are some things that they don't see like the hidden structure pillar beams.
一进去你看到人家家，你的职业病你会观察什么 ？I'm sure 你们 SID 会看到 something differently from 那个defect specialist 的。
For me, right, I always go into a newly renovated house, right, I will see the so-called, which is the trimming or the transition between two different products.
Terminations
Terminations, correct. So usually, let's say if a cabinetry, right, go all the way to the edge of that wall, how are they going to do a termination there? Because usually, as we know, right, when we see a wall, we will deem it as very straight. But in actual fact, right, that wall is not perfectly straight. So I always look out for this trimming and also see how other people does their termination.
That's your 职业病 as an engineer also.
Yeah, correct.
Because you're like looking at it from
Correct,
a precision
correct.
point of view.
Correct.
Okay, I agree with Jin Hong.
Yeah.
Normally, I go in to see is all the so-called.
Yeah.
So how's the so-called finishing, and the more important is the color combinations.
Correct.
通常我们都是选就是深配浅，深通常都是在 body. Why we put dark color in the body? At least the structure looks stronger. So the rest will be like door panel, some things.
Oh, so you mean the carcass of carpentry? You want to use a darker
At
color.
least it look more stronger.
What about the walls?
The wall normally will be lighter tones. Why we do that? So that those are curtains, sofa, everything we can choose slightly darker, especially sofa. Because sofa normally we see it's quite easy to turn dirty. So we need to choose slightly darker tone to avoid this sort of dirtiness.
Yeah. So we have engineering way of looking at things, which is precision. And then for Darren, right, he's basically looking at it from a very practical point of view.
Agree?
And then what about our defect specialist?
Well, it's very hard to answer because when we are doing defect check, right, we have our 职业病 is everything.
Yeah.
So that means that we are the police. So for example, right, when you go to a friend's house, resale HDB, just renovated, right, you open the door. From the moment you open the door, right, if there's not enough allowance, the door is a bit stuck, we can feel it already. You take 3 steps into the living room, the floor is vinyl flooring. The moment you step on a piece of vinyl that is a bit hollow, not enough padding underneath or not evenly laid, right? You can feel it also. Then you sit down in the living room sofa, you look up, okay, maybe everything looks very, very nice, but maybe there's a bit of sokong that wasn't done very, very well, like the bit of painting. After aircon man installed, maybe the plastering wasn't done so well, or the window person do, after that the sides are not so done well. It's very, very obvious to us.
I'm very curious with 2 things. One is I've seen horror story, TikToks even, the homeowner go and stick the house until don't know what, a lot of stickers. The second one is, how does one even become a defect specialist?
Very good question. So the truth is, right, unfortunately in Singapore, defect checking, right, is not so regulated by BCA. BCA hasn't come up with an official guideline or official course to say that you must be certified to be a defect checker. However, there are courses like the BCA Conquest course that we can go for. Once you are certified there, at least you have the basics. Okay, so the basics will be what you basically need to know about Singapore houses. On top of that, right, we also go for what we call the RICS certification. So RICS certification is a global certification for defect inspection or house inspection. So that is what we use to give ourselves and also our inspectors more credibility lah.
So you are Concourse certified lah.
Concourse certified and RICS certified.
Okay, now that's interesting. My concept of defect checking comes in a few stages. Either it's a homeowner feeling like the house is not done to a certain extent, but it's you say I say, 对吧？你说我说谁说的算。So you bring in a third party. The other one is usually is like before even the ID take over the project 啊，很可能就是 developer 做完了。然后你们就进来先去 mark out 先，不然的话，这个变成是你们的问题了，因为你们先小人后君子嘛，先给人家全部 mark 完之后，这是他们的事情，不是我的事情。So how many of this kind of project you all get like in a month? Like how many is after ID 做的？ How many 是 before the project start one?
Okay, so it really depends on the homeowner. So there are homeowners who say that, my ID include the defect checking already. So that's why we don't need a defect checker. The ID will do for me. So in this case, right, ID will bear full responsibility. So if there's any defect at the end, right, the ID cannot then push back to say that, building service control from HDB never do. So that will become a problem for the ID. So we always suggest that we come in as a third party. We help you to check through, make sure that everything is clear in terms of the HDB side of defects before the ID even start work. So in that sense, the homeowner starts with a piece of paper that is 100% rather than a piece of paper if already have holes.
I understand. Let's really move on to what really happens on site. I don't think 一个设计师他开始做设计的时候，他的出发点是我不要给人家来 spot 我的 defect。他的最终目的还是要让顾客开心嘛，住得安心，住得好。然后真正你们讲说 like you run a project, right? There are a lot of technical considerations that you have to put on site. That you have to remember that this is other things I want to do for the customer. Now, like this question I want to 问 Darren 啊，就是因为反正你 technical 很 strong 嘛，我认识你这样久，就是一天到晚就是跟我讲，this one not practical, this one not technical. Then technical 的东西赌一个 homeowner not sexy 的嘞。然后你要怎么去说服他说，你这个你听我的，你不会走错的。你是怎么说服客户的
OK， 通常屋主找我呢是已经知道我是以 medical side 的，所以我讲的东西都是生活所需要的某一些 most of the things 啦。
打个比方，
就比如说厨房，很多人就是说要某一些东西 ，but it's really is not medical。可是有一些 owner， 尤其是 so called wife，especially like built-in oven， 很多现在屋子是越来越小，可是他们又要有 built-in oven，所以我每次都 throw back question， 说请问一下你的 built-in oven how often you really going to use？ To be honest, if let's say you come to the research, there's a plenty of place for us to create a built-in oven. So I told them, why not you built-in oven 放在 stove 的下面？结果他又 throw back question 说，放在 stove 下面变成了以后我老了春夏我很不方便。So it's the same thing that 如果你都很少用了 then what for you want a built-in oven？So we need to counter back 咯。OK， 这样子 instead of built-in oven，maybe 你可以找另外一种叫 conventional oven，also quite functionality。
就是直接放在 table top 就可以了。
不一定直接放在，还是做一个 tall unit， 连这个 tall unit 可以 functionally do 啊。你还可以放built-in microwave oven、air fryer、even rice cooker with pull out tray is more practical than 你只是放一个 built-in oven for just a display。So this is how I counsel, but I can say most of the owner quite buy this. So we need to explain to them more detail what is more practical. To be honest, 我 serve 的 owner 是蛮新的。Most of them is first time. But first time 真的是没有一些 knowledge or even 没有自己去煮。可是他听到这个某人说好看，那个某人说好看，这些只是他没有一个 point 啊。So as an idea, as always come in, we need to give back more advice. So what is the advantage and what is the disadvantage? I always say back to the same question. You're the consumer. You got right to choose. But I'm an ID. I will just give you the advice. What is practical, what is not practical. It's up to you to choose.
Actually, talking about practicality, right? You know there are some bedrooms and then there are some homeowners, first time homeowners, right? 很可能他会讲有一些画面，他讲说我要有我的 built-in wardrobe， 然后 built-in wardrobe 在一个现代的 BTO， 然后 for 一个年轻夫妇你觉得从一个 engineering 角度practical 吗？
Built-in wardrobe.
Sorry, not built-in wardrobe.
Built-in closet.
Walk-in wardrobe. Walk-in wardrobe.
Okay, it depends on 很像他们睡觉的那个地方 right？ 只是 purely 去睡觉吗？还是会有其他的 activity？ 我就会 question 因为我觉得装修is like a FYP。It's a two-way thing. They have to give me their input, their day-to-day lifestyle and what will happen in that bedroom so that if it's only just clustered to that particular bed space, right, then that walk-in wardrobe doesn't make real sense Like 你单单这样走进去 right， 第一点你 cut off 那个 natural lighting 进来。
Yeah.
第二个是你要看你的 household number 是多少。Is there any potential to 把另外一个房间打通，从 integrate 这个整个 space，then 再carve up 一个 walk-in closet right？Then it will make sense.
In a sense that 刚才就讲到说从一个空间的比例感，还有那个采光，
是
直接有一个 walk-in wardrobe 就是影响到很严重的。
对。
On top of that, right, I also feel that 要考虑的 from an engineering point of view 可能就是要 future plan 咯。
Correct.
年轻夫妇很可能会要生孩子。
对。
生孩子的那个 baby cot 是放在房间还是放在外面？
是。所以说这个东西要问很清楚。like 好像说有些，然后我做一个 project 差不多3000多方尺 ，then 这个家值2个人住 ，of course you must have a walk-in closet.
Yeah.
But whereas 你去到一个 HDB right，then you have to ask yourself any future plan, how many people will be living in that household, so that we are very firm that we don't want to have any children in the future. Then of course, okay, I will suggest you to hack down every wall, reconfigure your space. But if 你讲你要有孩子 then okay please 你要几个一个的话 okay at least you still have to keep one room in future 啦 but if 你讲 plan might change over time right then of course then 我就跟你讲不要 hack control the amount of clothes going to your wardrobe
在装修之前你会给他们什么样的一种 advice？ 从 technical point of view
OK， 通常我会跟屋主解释，就是说 ，before 你要 engage 这个 ID，make sure 你的生活习惯全部一定要跟你的 ID communication， 这个是最重要。要不然的话，整个 design 出来或整个 functionality 全部 is not there，变成有很多 argument。最重要是你看到什么要跟 ID share。I feel that 很多 household 就是说，我 engage 这个 ID，I pay them so called the huge amount。I believe he can settle everything without asking this thing. This is not true 啦。所以在一个装修界，我看了那么多年之后，最重要是要沟通咯，每次一定要跟屋主沟通咯。
OK， 那现在我去问俊宏like in your experience as an ID 啦，how important is it for homeowners to visit the job site? As opposed to today, we got technology like WhatsApp and all that. I send pictures. Do you think firstly how important and secondly is that if they want to go and visit, right, what's the frequency?
I would say after a certain major job lah, like for example
the phases.
So maybe like you can meet them before tiling phase to roughly explain to them the plan and the drawing. Then after execution or midway there's any exception right, also get them down to do a site discussion so that they can better understand the situation. Because I tell you the wall is not straight, you won't believe so that if experienced tiler or experienced ID right or contractor right, they will if they encounter this problem right, they will upfront they will tell. They won't hide until the very end where your tiles from one side to another side have a very steep gradient. Then when you tell owner about this they won't accept really. I would say that from time to time, major job done right have to meet up with the customer before and after That's the best.
In the renovation, right, sometimes 人有三急嘛。Toilet bowl need to install already then suddenly the guy need to go
master bedroom toilet.
Would you allow?
No. Usually my toilet bowl is the very very last thing that will install because some toilet bowl can cost up to 2,000 plus. If they go and jeopardize that toilet bowl they don't admit I have to pay what.
Okay.
So the standard is they will use a cardboard to fold to a cone shape, then they will pee into there. But end of the day, the criteria is you have to throw off the used one. The next day you own self go and fold another cone.
So got the conduct one SOP one.
But if like big business, no lah. Of course no go lah.
Okay, what about you, YJ? Okay, then your question is related to defects lah. Give our homeowners an understanding if they are going into a home renovation done. What are the 3 things they can self-check?
First one will be water ponding. So wet area, yard, toilets, both toilets, and maybe also kitchen. Kitchen depends lah, right? You can pour a bit of water, maybe half a bucket of water, let the thing clear into the drainage hole, give it about 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Then you see whether there's any water ponding. Because this one is quite serious. If you're mopping the floor, or if you're just showering, right, and there's water ponding, it take very long for it to
won't
go.
flow.
Yes, it will just puddle in the side, at the corner, in the center. then it's a very big problem.
Okay.
Another one would be windows. Windows also a big problem. So if your windows, make sure you test, make sure there's no sound, hinges are okay, alignment is okay, make sure it's not jammed. Not just the normal windows, but also your casement window, all this must check also.
Okay.
Yeah. Then the last one I would say doors, alignment, gap below the seams at the side, make sure it's all sealed up properly. I think these are also, because it affects the soundproofness, it affects whether mosquitoes can go in and stuff like that.
If you enjoyed the conversation that we have today, right, please remember to like, share, subscribe, follow us. Thank you and goodbye.
Right.